The Lagos state government has flagged 176 estates as illegal, issuing a 21-day ultimatum to developers to obtain layout approvals. From Ajah to Ibeju-Lekki, to Eti-Osa, some of the most prominent names in the property development are on the list. The Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development says these estates lack mandatory layout approvals, which violates the state's urban planning laws and the T.H.E.M.E.S development agenda.
Well, developers now have 21 days to submit proper documentation or face enforcement actions, ranging from site closures to legal prosecution and even revocation, and not forgetting to revocation of building permits. Well, what does this actually mean for homeowners, investors, and the future of urban planning in Lagos? If you are one of those who possibly has gotten a property along these axes that have been mentioned, I'm sure you'll be having your heart in your mouth and you want to know what the way forward is. Well, don't worry. Joining us now for this discussion, we do have a lawyer in the house who understands the intricacies of properties and what the Lagos State Governor has indeed said from yesterday. We have Mr. Oladipupo Ajayi, who joins us here.
Good morning.
Live. Good morning,
Mr. Ajayi.
I hope your house is not on that list.
At all.
Hey, relax. There's those of us who have relaxed.
I wouldn't do such a mistake.
Hey!
I wouldn't do such a mistake.
Okay, so let me start calling the lawyers now and get ready.
So why do you put an did such a mistake?
Let's first of all, let's get a rounded understanding of what's going on. What does the governor mean? What's that statement? What is it about? What does it cover?
Well, basically, for you to build an estate, you need a permit.
Okay.
For you to also build a house, you need a permit. But the unfortunate thing is there is no synergy within the government agencies. I can tell you for free, authoritatively, that there are persons in that estate that have building approval. So the question is, why would you grant building approval to a person in an estate that has not actually obtained the permit to do an estate? And the question is, agencies don't care. There are a lot of agencies, even in the built industry, they're all about revenue. So the question is, why would you grant a building approval for a building in an estate that has no permit? Let's take the Corporate Affairs Commission as an example. There are some companies you want to incorporate. They wouldn't incorporate without getting an approval in principle from the regulatory agency. To avoid a situation where the Corporate Affairs Commission would have incorporated you without obtaining the appropriate permits. But in Lagos, you discover that the agencies just continue to work. They are doing a very good job, I must confess. But the fact is, there is no synergy within the agency. And I must confess too, the developers are quite greedy. Because if you look at the way they actually get these estates, I can tell you, it is more or less synonymous to what we call Ponzi scheme.
Can you explain?
Ponzi scheme in the sense that majority of these guys do not outrightly purchase these estates. They actually render services to the local communities. One could be, oh, this community needs a developmental services. Take, for instance, they want to do a survey or a perimeter survey of the community, or they want to dredge a certain portion, or they want to construct road. So what these real estate guys do is they meet the locals, sign an agreement with them to do such transaction, and in exchange, they get the land. So whenever there is a problem or a breakdown in the agreement, it affects every other person they may have sold the land to, because they sell prior to the completion of the project. So now imagine there is a problem along the line, or you do not perform your contracts, and you have actually subscribed, and people have purchased these estates. Then it becomes a problem of people selling receipts, just like they say in quotes, not because they intend to actually do that, but because something had broken down along the line. So most of the time, they offer what they do not have. Because they hope that, oh, if this transaction go well, then the community in return would give me X, Y, Z. Or sometimes they make an application to the government, knowing fully well that it's a 50-50 thing. Take, for instance, you write the T.H.E.M.E.S exam, and you've gotten a very high score. It is not a direct ticket for you to be admitted into the choice of course you want. So we've seen people sell land with excision in process, these documents in process. The government may likely grant it, but you don't know the extent to which the government will grant it. If you have applied for 4, the government can decide to give you 2, 2.5. But the fact is, because it is in process, they begin to sell these estates to people, and
without having the land.
Without having the land. We hope that the land comes. So sometimes it's not that they intend to commit fraud, but the practice and the way and manner makes it look as if these guys are out there to defraud people.
Okay.
Although they are somehow there to defraud people.
Absolutely.
Sincerely.
So what then can the property buyer do to ensure that they guarantee the titles of their property? Because as is evident, all lands belong to the governor, as provided for in Section 1 of the Land Use Act.
Yeah, very well.
So how can land users or land owners, intending landowners, protect themselves from finding themselves in this situation, even though we'll come back to what the actual interpretation of this notice means? But how can, because you're saying that sometimes they sell without formally perfecting the title to the land. So how do they protect themselves?
Now, the very good thing is, you see, just like I said earlier on, that I will not fall victim of such. You cannot buy what we call real estate via a TV advert. You are not purchasing a car. The best way is to get a lawyer or a professional or whoever to conduct due diligence. We also have specialists in that field. But the fact is, they prefer to buy from real estate companies because they give them juicy offer. It takes 5 minutes to drive from Civic Center to Dangote Refinery. Or you buy one, get one free.
Or get a free ram during salad.
Of course, you get free rams.
Bag of rice.
Who does that? Even when the bigger companies do promo, you hear buy two, get one free. Nobody tells you buy one, get one free, or it takes you 5 minutes to drive from one place to the other. People don't do the due diligence. They don't even inspect. They pay for what they haven't seen. So the problem sometimes is the people, Nigerians or Lagosians.
But has government also failed in protecting and regulating the industry?
Well, you see, I wouldn't say the government has failed, and I must give kudos to the governor. I actually commend him. He's really trying. He's trying to regulate. But you know, Nigerians, we do not love compliance. We do not love compliance. A lady can wake up tomorrow morning because you are curvy, very beautiful. All of a sudden, you become a real estate agent or realtor. And you know, there's what we call appeal to emotions, appeal to pity. You see a fine girl dancing on Instagram telling you she has about $500 million property to sell. I'm sorry, apologies. Please.
Because you already see my eye rolling.
I'm sorry.
No, but
because the same way that...
No, fine girl.
No, because there are also fraudulent young men that are packaging themselves with...
Of course, I agree with
Olive, but we know that the industry uses more women.
No, please, no. Three of you, I will not agree with that.
No, I will tell you that.
No, I will not agree. I will not agree with that. Let's not make it about... Let's not make it the same way we say on this show, we shouldn't put labeling. Tribal labeling. Let's not make it about gender. There are men and there are women who are fraudulent and not experts in the field.
We're not saying
we can make the point without
to balance the equation. You see a man with a very nice suit.
There are people. Please go ahead.
You see a man with a very nice suit coming up to actually advertise a property without doing your findings. You go into it. And I can tell you, even when we do findings, sometimes there's always a problem. That's the truth. Sometimes when you do your due diligence, there's always a problem because of the system. So the question is, why should I do due diligence when after doing due diligence, I still encounter a problem? That is the Nigerian system. But it is very bad of you to just buy a property without conducting any form of due diligence.
So the due diligence would mean, because they're not experts, having a lawyer and somebody who's an expert.
Exactly.
So who are people? Is it like a lawyer, a surveyor?
Even I, as a lawyer, sometimes you contract me. I cannot actually write a report without working with a surveyor. I cannot chart a land.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now let's go back to this story. We're seeing here 176 properties, illegal estates. Usually when Nigerians hear things like this, Lagosians especially, the first fear that comes to your mind is they're going to demolish my estate. Because we saw last year, there were a number of demolitions that were carried out, and even this year. Yeah. So are these properties at the risk of being demolished? Is it just official documentation that needs to be sorted? Or maybe are there areas of concern, maybe with the legality of where the properties were built, that may end up leading to them potentially being demolished?
Well, as a lawyer, I can tell you that sometimes omission may make you liable. The government has provided rooms for people to come and regularize. They only omitted something. So it isn't that they were built in a place they ought not to build. The government will tell you, okay, we're coming to do this. There is always a notice. The government have given a 90-day window period for estate developers to come and regularize. So it's not going to be a complete loss of investment if you do the needful within the time frame provided by the government.
All right, because from what we're seeing here, they're saying that a number of these properties have started construction and development without getting proper plan or approvals.
Now, sorry, let's distinguish. between a proper layout approval and the building plan approval. I can tell you some of all these buildings have approval, but if you look at the publication very well, it is the estates. Because you're supposed to submit what we call your layouts. The government is supposed to see, okay, how many meters road do you have? Is there an hospital? Is there a hospital rather? Is there police facilities? Are there stuffs within the estates? It shouldn't just be about commercializing and making a lot of profits. Those are the things the government actually wants to see. That makes it mandatory for you to submit your layout for proper approval before the building actually commences. So sometimes it is not about the building in the estate, it is the estate authority itself.
Now let's talk about regulatory authorities, because when we started this conversation, you said sometimes there's an overlap in functions and people get confused as to who's in charge of what, and the bureaucracy also, and also the interagency competition. It almost seems they forget their primary functions, and it's almost like a revenue drive. It's not just the Lagos State problem. We see it in the Nigerian Customs Service. Even J.E.M.E.S that is meant to conduct exams now seems like a revenue collection agency. So we have LABCA, the Building Code Agency. We have LASERA. We have the Ministry of Lands and Urban Planning. From a layman's perspective, if I want to build a house, just a bungalow, 3-bedroom bungalow, somewhere in Ikeja on Wemco Road.
That's your plan, yeah.
No, I have bigger plans. But let's be humble for now. For the sake of the viewers, be humble. Let's start with Wemco Road and not go straight to Banana Island.
Okay.
So walk us through the process, the ideal process.
Okay. The first thing is to even ensure that the land you intend to build in the very first place has a very good title. Because one of the documents they would make a request for is your deed of assignment. And I love the agency. Even after giving you the permit, they will tell you this does not confer or validate your title. So if you have bought wrongly and you get a legitimate permit, it does not make you the appropriate owner, because the foundation itself is faulty. Do you understand that?
Come again, please.
You get a land,
Okay.
or you have a land, you approach the ministry for building approval, they will ask for a deed of assignment and also ask for your drawing and also grant you the approval. But the question is, does the approval actually make you the real owner of the land? No. So you ought to have done your due diligence very well before presenting a plan to the government for approval, because your approval does not cure any defects in title. So if your title is defective and you have an approval, it does not make any sense. But if you have a good title and you do not have an approval, you can regularize.
How do you have a good title?
The good title is ensure you do your due diligence. If you are buying from the so-called Omonile, there are some things you need to do. If you are buying from a real estate company, there are some things you need to ask for. And, okay, there are not two types of land. The kind of land actually determines what kind of document you ask for. Okay. Because sometimes they can tell you they have a global CFO. These estates sometimes do not like to release such documents. Yeah. And then you go ahead. I've seen instances whereby people pay before a contract of sales is being sent. So why would you pay before receiving a contract of sales? It's like putting the cart before the horse. But the question is, there are a lot of marketing strategies out there that would make you pass away with your money before even thinking of the right thing to do. And people do not want to pay professionals. I've seen somebody who wanted to buy a property of about 300 million and find it hard to just do what we call due diligence. And the due diligence fee has nothing to do with the percentage, because it's not conveyance or transfer of title or whatsoever. Just a specific amount to conduct due diligence. They find it very difficult. So sometimes I do not blame Nigerians, or I'm not, don't let me use the word because I don't want to appear insensitive. But people need to do better. People really need to do better.
Okay, so in this situation where we have a list, and I can see a number of these estates, I can see their names. On the island, for example, and in Nigeria, what we see in some parts is the estates, they are the owners of the estates. But in the estates, there are different properties that have different landlords.
Very well.
These landlords, to the best of their ability, have thought that they were buying a property that had good title, everything was in order. And typically, when it comes to tenancy laws in Lagos State, some would argue that the law leans in the favor of the tenant the law would provide for, remedies where there's a wrong being done. In this case, can the landlords in these estates claim that there was a wrong done to them? And is there any remedy for them in this case? Should the owners of the estates not choose to go ahead to regularize within the 21 days that is demanded by the government?
Now, come to think of it, there is a bigger, huge distinction between a landlord-tenant relationship and a developer-landowner relationship. Now, that law may not be applicable in this case.
Okay.
Now, what I would say basically is, for you to have built, I'm sure you must have gotten or requested for some documents in the estate. The problem is the developer or the estate. Now, let's be careful. When you say developer, some developers develop single units to sell, some the estates. So let me use the estate developers, not the... Yeah. So, because we need to actually distinguish between which. Exactly. What you have cited may not be applicable in this instance. It's not a landlord-tenancy transaction. It is an approval, estate layout of a thing. It has nothing to do with title. Take, for instance, let me break it down. I love breaking it down when it comes to property transaction. You drive in on the road and you are stopped by VIO. It has nothing to do with the ownership of your vehicle. So it has nothing to do with title. The word title shows ownership. We are not saying you do not own it. We are saying when you own it, there are some things you must do to use that thing you own appropriately so that you don't cause inconvenience to others.
Okay, so maybe...
Look at places like Iba, Okoko, places that have been developed before now. There's a little or nothing the government can do. But look at T.H.E.M.E.S, look at Ibeju-Lekki. These are emerging communities and societies. That is why the government has decided to come up with the T.H.E.M.E.S agenda, considering traffic, considering environmental sustainability, the greens, and a lot of stuff. That is why the government is actually focusing more on this area. It has nothing to do with the ownership.
Okay, so let me flip that question. The flip side to that question would be, if now, you've said it has nothing to do with their ownership, but as somebody who owns a property in this estate, if the owners of the estate, the developers of the estate, have refused to regularize within the 21 days as stipulated, what would likely be the implication for the estate? And does that affect me as a landowner or as a property owner within that estate? Yeah. Or a resident, exactly.
Anyway, I know very well that Lagos State government is a very sensitive government. The governor himself is not an insensitive man, and I would not love to preempt what may happen. We've seen cases whereby they grant extensions of ultimatum. They keep granting because, housing there's deficiency rather. We have more persons moving into Lagos on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
It is not the gain of any government to come demolish any property, except it's going to cause havoc. So I can tell you authoritatively that the government will look for a way out. No government is in... I'm not actually soliciting for the... I was speaking on behalf of the government, but no government would deliberately or intentionally want to destroy 177 houses, estates comprising of several houses in Lagos. It's not going to be possible.
So this is a paperwork issue.
Very well, and to serve as a precedent and also deterrent to others.
Okay. What do you suggest owners of these estates start doing now, especially since the ultimatum has been put in place?
The ministry will be very full today.
But basically,
I know a few persons who have properties. Yeah, and in my mind, I'm like, wow.
It's going to happen.
I know, maybe I'll put a call through to them today and say, how far? What's going on? What's going on here?
Then we also need to note the fact that some of all these estates too are not yet fully developed. I can see some estates around the Ibeju-Lekki corridor. Some don't even have houses yet. It's just for them to do what they are supposed to do before building.
Okay, fair. Okay. This has been, quite an insightful conversation. I think my final question to this, I believe we've touched on majority of the points here, but my final question would be the viability of real estate as a source of, an alternative or a major stream of income, especially like you made reference to the fact that there's a housing deficiency, lots of young people. I mean, I was just calculating how many house rents I would have, by the time it comes up to 10 years, how much I would have paid in rent. And then when you think about the other alternative, which is buying a property, it's also very expensive.
And beyond the reach of
the average Nigerian. So I also hear that the government has been launching out some mortgage plans. I'm hoping that we can reach out to the Ministry of Housing as well and bring them on the show to talk about what plans are available for young Nigerians and even older Nigerians to purchase properties. Well, how affordable? Yes, I saw that one. I've forgotten the name, but I saw it.
M something.
I saw it to the one that is a government initiative. But first of all, how affordable or how accessible is it for people to be able to access loans or mortgages to be able to own properties? And would you still say that the real estate is a very viable sector when it comes to income generation for people who are looking to delve into the sector?
I can categorically tell you it's a very good form of investment. You just need to do it right. If you don't find it difficult to pay for your insurance premium, why would you find it difficult to do due diligence? Why would you find it difficult to perfect your title? These are things people need to note. We live in a society where people don't just love compliance. If you do that, you reap your investment on any property you buy if you are buying right. There's some property, well, I am not to teach on what kind of property to invest in. I'm a lawyer. My own comes in the area of title perfection, ensuring there is a title in the first place and you not being defrauded. There are some persons who can identify. Yeah. There are some persons who can identify properties who will do well when it comes to return on investment. Property, as far as Lagos is concerned, is a very good, the property business is a very good industry and section. All you just need to do is what? Do it right. Don't cut corners. It may be very expensive because the demand is more than supply.
It's a good thing that Lagos State government is also calling on real estate agents to register under their umbrella. Because these days, everybody is, what do you do? I'm a content creator. I'm into real estate. Everybody's a realtor. I am into real estate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to have you back because I know this conversation will not stop here and then we can talk some more. Thanks for staying with us as well. Thank you.